No, it's been called an enormous step forward for men's football. That's the view of former Sports Minister Tracey Crouch after the government committed to establish an independent regulator in the game in England.
Crouch chaired a fan-led review last year which called for reform, and now the government have backed their recommendations.
Although Crouch has welcomed the decision, she's voiced concerns over the unspecified timeframe for the implementation of the government's decision.
So what does this mean for football in England? Well, one key focus area of the independent regulator is around financial sustainability. The new regulator will be backed by laws which allow it to have financial oversight of clubs, meaning it can investigate and gather information. The independent regulator will also apply the new enhanced owners and directors test, which will replace the current test carried out by the Premier League, Football League and Football Association. And what does this mean for fans? Well, the government has committed to giving supporters a voice in the running of their clubs.
Well, for more on this, let us say we're joined by our senior reporter, Geraint Hughes. And Geraint, long-time club coming. A lot of people will say the bigger clubs, they've pushed up back against this as long as they can. But what specifically are Tracey Crouch's concerns?
I think the number one concern is just the time frame. And now sort of, you know, I heard about this last night, delving a little bit more into the detail. Obviously, Tracey Crouch was very much aware of you know, the government were going to back her 10 key recommendations. There are many other recommendations which we've yet to hear about whether they're backing or not, or whether they're still in discussions about that. But it's the time frame, because what the government have said so far today is that they hope to their backing of Tracey Crouch's fan-led review, to write that up as a white paper to put before Parliament this summer. What does this summer mean? Parliament is a very, very busy place in many, many ways right now. So when will they have the time to put this before Parliament?
They take a recess in the summer.
Well, exactly. Mid-July is the summer recess. So if they want to get the white paper before Parliament, you know, this side of the autumn, they've got to do it before then. That means they've got to resolve all the other recommendations, whether they agree, they disagree, or they need to tinker with them, change them, etc., etc. Then get it written up, and then what does a white paper mean? All a white paper is, it is an important piece of an important document to you, but it is essentially a policy documentation which goes before Parliament. Then later down the line, it will go into becoming legislation. Now, I don't see there any problem in it becoming legislation, because there seems to be cross-party support for Tracey Crouch's review, and given the fact that the government have backed the 10 key strategic recommendations, you don't foresee on the face of it there being any problems. However, this is not going to happen next week, next month, next summer, the autumn. We're still potentially a couple of years away from this actually becoming legislation. Then you've got some other factors that could come into it. The fact that I said there, Westminster Parliament is an extraordinarily busy place for many, many reasons. There could be things that happen over the next few months which could result in, you know, for example, you know, a general election or etc. You know, I'm speculating there, but that could really halt up any parliamentary time, which means that a white paper, which is effectively a starting point for all MPs to have their say, gets pushed down the road. And later, there's a little bit of history here as well. You know, if you look at football, there have kind of been 7 attempts previously to bring in some sort of regulation for football. Nothing has come therefore. I think we're at a different stage right now with this, because of the review being the way it's been done, the way that Tracey Crouch presented it last November, and the way that now it's been backed by government. But the worrying time frame for Tracey Crouch is evident, because, as I've just explained there, it's going to be a long time if this does become legislation, and there are some stumbling blocks potentially in the way as well.
But it's been greeted as quite positive news, this, but when you're talking about potentially 2 years, maybe even more, that is quite a big worry.
Well, yeah, you know, look, we're hoping to hear from the Sports Minister, Nigel Huddleston, later today. But, for example, the Shadow Sports Minister, Lucy Powell from Labour, she's flagged this time frame worry that Tracey Crouch has mentioned overnight there as well. What this could mean is, you know, if it does take this time to bring in, for example, the independent regulator, you could have another club going out of business between now and then. You know, we've already had Bury, Macclesfield. We have some problems obviously with Derby at the moment. Obviously looking as well, you know, into the owners test as well. That's going to be one part that's going to be heavily scrutinised, that as well. Could be a couple of years potentially. it could be that length of time before Tracey Crouch's recommendations become law, become legislation, and have to become a reality. So we're still some time away from this. Labour have flagged this, Tracey Crouch has flagged this. We'll hear if the government responds on this today as well, because I think if there is a time frame on it, it'll be very much, it will be easier for everyone to maybe get their head around, but also as well for people that are doubting that this will ever happen. It may actually give them some confidence going forward that there is going to be a change, reform in football.
Yeah, lots to happen. Okay, Geraint, thank you.